Hi John, welcome to the program. How is the yield looking for this year?
There are a number of influences out there, the weather being obviously the most dynamic, and it hasn't been kind to the North Island this year at all. So all that rain and weather and all the rubbish that was being chucked at them has certainly had a major impact on all the crops across the whole of the North Island, from the Manuka through to the pasture honeys. Everybody's taken a bit of a hammering. So if we thought we saw a wee drop in production last year, we will see a much bigger drop in production this year for sure.
Have you got any estimates of figures at all, or what we're looking at?
Not at this stage. It's too early to say. I mean, if we look at our business down here in the South Island, we've had all sorts of challenges leading into Christmas, battling our way through Varroa and all those sort of challenges that come at you when you least expect it. Though we do expect that the South Island will have a reasonable honey crop. Obviously, there was a lot of clover around, for example, leading up to Christmas and through Christmas. Obviously dried off now, but prior to that it was everywhere. So I'm sure that the pasture crops are looking quite strong. The Manuka is okay for us in the South Island, but the complete opposite in the North Island. I spoke to some of my fellow beekeepers in the North Island, and while the countryside was lovely and white and full of clover and all that sort of stuff, the bees just couldn't get out to work it. So they might get out for one day and then be locked inside for the next 2 days. So it's been quite a challenge for them. I think the other thing to understand too is that the number of hives that we were traditionally running in the country has come down quite dramatically from a high of probably, let's say a high of 950,000 hives in the country, and we're probably hitting now under 700,000. And that's a direct reflection of the fall of prices for Manuka honey. The prices at wholesale are well down, and many of those beekeepers that entered the gold rush, if you like to call it that, or the time when things were really booming, they didn't have sufficient time to really get on their feet, and we're seeing a lot of those beekeepers withdraw from the market. Some of those hives have been sold, and others may be just sitting there doing very little right at this time.
Why has there been a drop like that? Is it because of just a basic supply and demand thing, that a lot of Manuka honey was being produced and so that's forced the prices to come down?
What we've seen is over the last 10 years, the hive numbers built up from that, say, 700,000 right up to 950,000, with most of those new hives that entered the industry totally focused on Manuka honey. We then saw an increase in production, and the production was far greater than what we're actually selling every year. So we've seen a build-up of stocks, and of course that's they sort of weathered that storm for a couple of years, but that's all coming home to roost now, and we're seeing quite a change in their thinking. We've got, obviously, it's a buyer's market, so prices have come down to reflect the oversupply, and we've just seen a whole raft of issues sort of all come tumbling down at the same time. So things are quite tough for many Manuka beekeepers at the moment. They haven't sold their stock. Some of them are sitting on perhaps 2, 3, or even 4 years stock. So that's a problem, because no cash flow means no cash flow, full stop. And that's why we're seeing people drifting back into their previous employment and things like that, rather than stick it on with the beekeeping side.
So what does the future look like, John? I mean, I was reading that tariffs are coming off. It could be good for exporters.
Yeah. So if we look at our export totals over the last 10 years, particularly in the last 5 years, we haven't seen any dramatic increase in volume at all. So it hasn't really been going up. Last year we dropped a little bit, I think, but we're pretty consistent in what we're moving. So you'd have to say that our sales are pretty mature. The market's quite mature, and it's not that easy to open up new markets that are going to take large volumes of products. So time is our friend, but it's going to take investment by the exporting companies to actually open up those new markets and actually grow the volume a bit further. I don't see the volume increasing just because the tariff drops in the EU it's not going to, all that's going to happen there probably is that the EU buyer is going to adjust his price accordingly.
Anything else, John, that we should be watching out for?
Look, I think it's just a matter of we'll see how our season rolls. I mean, the beekeepers, extractors are starting now. They're starting to extract honey, so time will tell how that plays out. But everything's a bit late this year, so everything's sort of rolling probably 3 to 4 weeks behind what we would normally see. And that's just, again, a reflection of how that season is rolled out and the challenges that everybody had prior to Christmas. So well, let's see. Look, we're always hopeful. The industry is very resilient, and they weather through a bad year, if you like. Beekeeping's a 7-year cycle. You see the lows and the highs over 7 years, and it's been pretty much like that for as long as I've been involved. So we can only wish everybody all the best. We hope that the pollination side of the season went well for our fellow farming and croppers and orchardists, and let's see how we get on as we start to see the numbers come out at the other end.